Hello, Internet. Welcome back to the 2H Media stream.
Lovely. Glad to be here.
Yeah.
Another one.
We've got
June. What a month.
Yeah, that's right. It's actually
end of June.
Not been a huge month for tech news. There's been like a little bit that's pretty impactful.
Couple things.
And then some things I just love to talk about. So we've got 4 topics today. U.S. House of Representatives narrowly passed DJI drone ban bill. The U.S. sues Adobe for deceiving subscriptions that are too hard to cancel. What's a good average e-commerce conversion rate in 2024? That is the topic I'm probably most excited for today. And then Shopify's AI sidekick chatbot for merchants is now in early access. So a bit of an e-commerce centric stream today once we get through our initial couple of topics, which are like government technology intersection focus, which is something we've touched on a few times in the past.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and I'll share screen and
dive into it.
Kick us off with US House of Representatives narrowly passes DJI drone ban bill. DJI may have been right to be worried about its potential ban moving through the United States legislation, as the Countering CCP Drone Act, which is a wild name for a bill, narrowly passed through the House of Representatives this past week. There are multiple steps of bill like the Countering CCP Drones Act, which was initially introduced last April by Congressman Mike Gallagher and Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, needs to be taken in order to become a law. Beyond official submission, the bill has to pass both House and Senate committee votes, followed by passage in both House of Congress and both houses of Congress, and finally it must be signed by the President. The first of those steps occurred in May as the House Armed Services Committee and the Senate Armed Services Committee both passed the bill easily. The next major hurdle was jumped on Friday as the bill, which was bundled into the 2025 National Defense Authorization Act, passed by a narrow margin of 217 to 199. Drone Life reports, now the bill moves on to the Senate, where it will be debated and possibly amended. The Shenzhen-based company has become the world's largest drone manufacturer, which makes up over 70% of the world's drone market share. The bill's possible passage therefore has many drone pilots and advocates nervous. In its current state, the bill would not prohibit the use of already existing DJI drones in the United States, just the sale of future products, accessories, and software. However, many fear that if it passes, drone operators may have their existing FCC authorizations of their products and drone fleets revoked, and devices forced to be grounded. Now, it's not mentioned in this article by Petapixel specifically, but I've also heard it reported that there's talk of restricting DJI drones from using radio frequencies. Yes. That are controlled in the US. So if that passes as well, or gets amended to this, or gets implemented, then it will mean that even the existing drones, even without having your license revoked, won't be something you can legally fly, because you'll be able to use the radio frequencies to actually control the drones.
Yep. So definitely, what does it mean for Canadians?
So far, nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing.
Not yet.
Hopefully we don't follow suit. It's interesting though, because like we talked recently on a stream about similar Canadian legislation addressing Chinese or foreign investment in tech companies in Canada. So you can see globally that there is a trend right now of North American governments becoming more protective of what technology is coming into the country, and then even what technology is being exported. When you remember the bans on graphics processors being sold into China that was announced a few months ago as well.
Yep. So like we use DJI drones.
Yeah.
DJI drones. We've never flown them in the States. We don't do a lot of drone work in the States. It's all in Canada. It's a massive industry. Real estate market uses them all the time. There's like a whole drone show. This is a big industry. There's a lot of people that use drone, the ability to capture photography and videography without the need of a helicopter or an aerial rig
or a crane. It's a revolutionary tool.
Oh, it's incredible. And I will say, the drones that we have, they're fantastic to fly. The software is great. The quality isn't fantastic. Yeah, they still cost thousands of dollars, but it's a lot less than renting a crane. And the permitting that's required for a crane. So we don't fully know what FTC authorizations you need to fly a drone in the States. We've never had work there, so like I don't know where that all pertains. But for Canada, it's pretty much get a license, go buy a drone.
Yeah.
It's pretty, and then there's rules like you can't fly over people,
and like permits for like shooting specific times.
Yeah, you're not flying in places that you shouldn't be flying a drone in. Okay, great. But
it's
like
pretty common sense stuff.
Yeah, it's super common sense stuff.
It's worth noting, this isn't a drone ban.
No,
this is a CCP
countering CCP, and everyone CCP.
This is Chinese Communist Party.
Yep. So like they are worried about the footage and data collected by the technology
potentially
making its way back to China.
Yeah.
Which now we're just speculating on. It could happen.
Well, so it's one of our discussion questions is there a precedent for Chinese technology being employed for espionage?
Of course.
And the answer is absolutely yes. There is. There was that big scandal a few years back with. Parts being used. Oh, so there was a Huawei one, and this might be tied into the same thing. I think it was in the cell phone towers.
Yeah, Huawei.
Huawei. There was technology that was capturing information that it wasn't supposed to capture,
and then sending it back to China. And there's like 50 others.
Yep.
So
and there was that issue with like the one Huawei executive being held by the Canadian government for espionage, and then China held TikTok two of our tourists for espionage, and then it came out later that those might have actually been spies. That's kind of up in the air still.
Yeah. So yeah, the precedent is 100%. This is like the first thing.
Yeah.
Again, we don't have a crystal ball. This is probably not the last thing.
This is a real thing to be concerned about.
Yes, it is.
So we're not going to get into the merit of the law at this stage. What does this mean for video producers that use drones? Right now, we're okay because it's not affecting Canadians, so we're fine, and it's not limiting all drones. The problem with that is it's kind of hard to find.
I don't even know. I couldn't even tell you the number 2.
Neither could I. And I mean that makes sense because they have 70% of the market share.
Yeah.
That's a huge amount. Yeah. Like that's more than Windows. Windows doesn't have 70% of the desktop market share.
Google's got a thing more than that. But yeah, it's huge. 70% of anything is massive.
I don't think Google has 70%. I'm talking. So you mean for others
for search.
Yes.
Yeah. But anyways,
like 70%
monopolies are there. But 70% is massive. I'd have to make a Google on who. If we were to buy another drone, with the current things, I would still be looking at DJI because. The drones are good.
I wouldn't buy a DJI drone right now.
No, I'd have to do some research.
What research can you do? Knowing that this legislation...
I don't even know if there is a comparable product on the market.
Even if there's not, even if there's nothing else on the market, why would you buy a product that's being legislated
that could be... So, like, what does this mean for drone producers? You're going to have to look at you're going to potentially have to move away from the fleet you've currently got. And I mean, most drone producers, you don't have 80 drones.
I would hope
you've probably got a couple.
I would hope that this means more drone companies crop up locally. We've got some amazing drone manufacturers in Canada. Aron Labs develops one of the best drones in the world. It's like you can see it in the museum and in Ottawa, whichever like the big science center that's down there. They've got one on display, and that's a Canadian-made product that's like super durable and passes all the military standards, but it's a military drone.
It's a military drone.
It's not on the consumer level.
It doesn't have a 4K camera. Well, I'm sure it does, but it's not meant for shooting real estate content.
Well, like they do very similar things to the ones that are consumer grade, but they're built to a higher standard and they're not accessible to the public.
Yeah.
Right. So I'd love to see. We have the capabilities in Canada to build these kind of tools. I'd love to see someone roll that out at the consumer level.
So there might be some new innovation happening in Canada. There might be some new startup pop up with it. It's that'll be cool. But yeah, definitely, that is a perfect example of why you need to keep an eye on. If we were to go look at a SWOT analysis again, this falls under the threat category. The government is coming in, proposing new rules, and your operation could be affected, and there's nothing you can do about it. That is something to keep an eye on.
Do you want to read in our next topic?
Yeah, absolutely. The U.S. Look at that. Still in the States. Sues Adobe for deceiving subscriptions that are too hard to cancel. The U.S. government is suing Adobe for allegedly hiding expensive fees and making it difficult to cancel a subscription. In the complaint filed on Monday, the Department of Justice claims Adobe has harmed consumers by enrolling them in its difficult, most lucrative subscription plan without clearly disclosing important plan terms. The lawsuit alleges Adobe hides the terms of its annual paid monthly plan in the fine print behind optional text boxes and hyperlinks. In doing so, the company fails to properly disclose the early termination fee incurred upon cancellation that can amount to hundreds of dollars, the complaint says. When customers do attempt to cancel, the Department of Justice alleges that Adobe requires them to go through an onerous and complicated cancellation process that involves navigating through multiple web pages and pop-ups. It allegedly ambushes customers with an early termination fee, which may discourage them from canceling. The lawsuit also targets Adobe executives Maninder Swaney.
I wouldn't even try.
The Senior Vice President of Digital Go-to-Market and Sales, as well as David, the President of the company's digital media business. The complaint says both executives directed, controlled, had the authority to control, or participate in the acts and practices of Adobe. And then Adobe did not initially reply to the request for comment, and that's coming from The Verge. And like all our links, we'll put that up for you. So
what this boils down to is, okay, Adobe is essentially being sued for using dark patterns to...
Explain what a dark pattern is.
Well, that's the whole point of me introducing that.
Introduce dark patterns.
I'd love to, but I actually need complete sentences for...
All right, I'll introduce you. I'll interrupt you one more time.
So we're going to try that again so that I have a clean cut point when I actually make this clip. So essentially what's happening is Adobe is being sued for using dark patterns to sell people on subscriptions that they don't fully understand. And a dark pattern is a tool that some unscrupulous companies will use when trying to sell online, where they build their websites in such a way that rather than being user-friendly, the websites are designed to trick customers into making a purchase that they weren't intending, or continue browsing content, and when they're actually looking to disengage from a service or unsubscribe. It's essentially visual tricks that companies use through poor user experiences and poor layout to force customers to interact with their services in really frustrating ways and spend more money than they otherwise would have.
And these dark patterns are definitely not new. If you go back, you can see this with phone companies. You can see this with, the cancellation process takes 30 minutes. The sign-up process takes 5 seconds.
Yep.
Why is this so hard to do? People get frustrated. A lot of them give up. Yeah.
You see a lot of this with, like a perfect example would be the GDPR compliance for cookies, the opt-in, where it's very easy to opt into all cookies, but then if you want to opt out of the cookies, they make you pull up another window and understand a bunch of complicated options and deselect the ones that you don't want, and then submit that, yes, I am approving that I don't want these cookies, and it's one button click to just opt in and let them have all your data. That's like a very common example of a dark pattern that reputable web developers and companies that are consumer friendly try to avoid. And that brings me to our first discussion topic for this article. Are dark patterns and deceptive behavior necessary to sell online? No.
Couldn't be further from the truth.
The answer should be obvious. No, you don't.
Couldn't be further from the truth. No, absolutely not. This does come down to, one, like we're finding out now, you could find yourself in some really hot water with the government because there's some actual things that are illegal.
Yeah.
And so not only is it bad and immoral, it's also illegal.
Yes.
So you can definitely find yourself in some very hot water.
And more to the point, not necessary.
Yeah.
If you want to make the most money selling online, there are lots of good ways to engage with your audience, many of which small businesses aren't leveraging. If you want to sell more of your product online, you don't need to obfuscate the information your customers are looking for. You need to make it easier for the right customers to find a product that's the right fit.
Yeah.
So that means sharing more information about your product. That means putting more effort into actually selling it on your website the way you would if you were explaining to someone in person. So often we see e-commerce sites with these bare bones descriptions, no additional content on the product page beyond the default template that you get on Shopify.
Resources.
Yeah.
No additional information. Hard to contact customer service. There's common questions not being answered, the things that people care about missing or in a different place. This really factors in. I mean, Adobe uses a subscription model, and obviously one of the biggest negative impactors on revenue would be churn rate. When churn rate is how many people are choosing to leave the model. So like, yes, you're getting new subscribers subscribing every month. Churn is how many of those subscribers every month are also leaving. So like, you've got an influx of new and then people are dropping off. You could look at that and say, well, I can prevent the people from leaving and that will decrease my churn rate. Or you could say, instead of doing it on this side, you could say, how do I make people want to stay? And
that's,
can't leave
100%.
are different things.
And that mentality shift is like really what we're driving at by discussing this topic, is you don't need to leverage dark tactics, or dark patterns and shady tactics to sell more to your customers, when the alternative is just to give your customers an excellent experience and sell them something that they actually want.
And love. And
you know, this has a big impact on your bottom line. You know, from the article, we're looking at Adobe using these dark patterns to trap people in subscriptions. One of our discussion topics is Adobe driving away small business with their practices? And I would argue that the answer is yes. We're seeing it in a lot of the consulting we do with small businesses. The vast majority of the time, the businesses we speak to are using Canva internally. And
the free version of Canva.
Well, some of them are paid.
Some of them are paid.
I want to group it together, right? Because free or paid, they're on Canva. They're not on Adobe.
Yeah, they're on Canva.
And when I got started in this industry, Adobe was the gold standard. You know, I used to, when I started out, I used an old free version of Adobe. It was legitimate, not a pirated one, because there was a window where Adobe was giving away access to, I think it was CS3, one of the early creative.
That wasn't even subscription yet. That was just
pre-subscription, and there was an older version of Adobe that you could just use for free, and it was awesome. The problem was, I was trying to work in a professional industry and collaborate with different printers and manufacturers and different people. And I realized that relying on my old version of Adobe was giving me files that weren't compatible with their versions and vice versa. And so we had all these issues connecting to each other's software. And so what did I do? I paid for the current version of Adobe, and that let me participate in the industry. Anymore, we're the weird ones for still using Adobe. And that depends on the space a little bit too. So like, I work with a lot of companies that are still designing board games and sending print files over to China. And those companies are typically relying on the Adobe suite for their manufacturing, or like for their actual like serious advanced design. But your typical business owner that's like putting out pamphlets and social media templates, they're using Canva.
And like specifically within Adobe, like we're talking Photoshop, Lightroom, Premiere.
Now, Premiere's still a giant. Premiere's still pretty common. A lot of people use DaVinci. DaVinci Resolve is like probably the biggest competitor. Final Cut is also pretty popular as well for the Apple crowd. But like, the video space is kind of its own thing. As far as graphic design is concerned, you know, Photoshop used to be king. And anymore, I'm seeing more and more people moving to Canva, and it's hard not to look at Adobe's practices and go, by being unfriendly to your consumers, is that impacting them moving away from you? Like, for a lot of people, just the fact that Adobe moved to a subscription was the final straw.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that hate, like, why am I paying a subscription when traditionally I've been paying for, you buy a license, you use the license.
I like it. I actually don't mind the subscription because
we do fine with it. We're in a different.
Well, I mean, just as a business owner who needs Adobe and needs to be on the current version of Adobe, the subscription, it costs some money, but we're constantly buying new Adobe licenses to upgrade to the latest version was also super expensive. So like, it's not a huge change, and now I don't have the headache of managing it. Adobe's just always up to date, which is great. But man, they're like, have you heard about the new AI stuff that Adobe is doing, where they're like demanding access to everyone's content?
Yes, which is I saw that article originally on Reddit when that came out, and it's wild that they need access to your design files to.
Well, they're going to feed that data into AI.
It's like, why do you need? Right.
Even if they're not right now, that's a very easy change for them to just update in the TOS later when people aren't as concerned about them having access to the data.
6 months later, they sneak it in. Terms of service update. It's on page 80.
Thankfully, we don't do too much like behind the scenes. Like, we're not dealing with a lot of sensitive graphic design content. So like from a liability perspective, it's not a big deal for us if Adobe can see the designs, because they're not like, we do a bunch of graphic design for a law firm. Adobe's not stealing that work to give
it's
to
not
the
like
law
a
firm's
bunch of IP.
competitors.
Yeah, like, oh my goodness, they're doing a 10% off.
Yeah, we're typically,
Oh,
if we have non-disclosure agreements, they're usually for like proprietary information specific to those companies, and usually that doesn't make it into the graphic design because we're designing elements that are going to be sent to the public anyways.
I'd love to know what they do with all like the. And again, we're a little bit of tinfoil hat here, but it's like, well, they're going to get access to all of your video files as well. So everything that doesn't make the final cut, they're going to have access to all the raw footage.
Yep.
And the hot mics.
Which they could be. Oh, that's a good point
and
too.
And all of the things that don't make it in, and all of that data, all of that raw data that gets fed in, that before anyone actually gets to cut things off, like, you're going to see, because the data exists, you have to assume the data is now vulnerable.
Yeah.
And if they're saying, hey, well, I'm going to get access to it, well, you know, Aron and I were chatting about a whole bunch of stuff before the camera turned on. We don't want that going anywhere. We're laughing about our weekend plans. We don't. That has no business being accessed by Adobe.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a problem there. There's like that shouldn't happen. Of course, that's going to drive away. That doesn't build trust. There's no way that behavior. When back to the question of saying, does that drive away small business? If the thing that they're doing doesn't build trust, the small business community typically doesn't like it.
Yeah. And it's tempting for people who are just looking at this issue to say, you know, I've got nothing to hide, so I don't care if Adobe can see it. But that's not the point. Even if you've got nothing to hide, Adobe should have no right to access that data.
Yeah.
You know, like if you go out and you buy a camera, the camera manufacturer shouldn't have access to all of your photos. Why should Adobe get access to everything? Because they control a piece of software that you're using. It doesn't make any sense.
So they're gonna. This more of this is gonna come out. I mean, this is still early stages. We might update you on this when we hear more. We'll see what happens.
Yep.
Next one, you want to go on to
the
big one?
off.
The big one?
So I'm really excited about this.
I'm going to let you read this one. I know we're both excited. We're both excited.
This is not breaking news, but I think it's one of the most important conversations that we'll have on this stream all year, because it's something that's really fundamental for anyone who's trying to succeed in the e-commerce space. So this is from a Shopify blog post titled, "What's a Good Average E-commerce Conversion Rate in 2024?" As a store owner, your e-commerce conversion rate might be the ultimate indicator of your business's viability. It's a fairly simple concept to understand, but not easy to improve. And that's really important. We're going to come back to that. Not easy to improve. However, a great e-commerce conversion rate is crucial to your store's success. A conversion occurs when someone takes an action on your website that you wanted them to take. Every website and its digital marketing team decides what they define as a conversion. Average e-commerce conversion rates are around 2.5% to 3% according to industry leaders, but that doesn't mean this is your business's sweet spot. Having a baseline of 2.5% is a good place to start, but keep working to optimize this with conversion rate tactics. The Shopify analytics app Little Data did a comprehensive survey of Shopify stores' conversion rates and found the average conversion rate for Shopify stores is 1.4%. If you have below 0.5%, you likely have room to improve. And if you're above 3.3%, you have a very good e-commerce conversion rate in the top 20% of all Shopify stores. This comes straight from Shopify.
That's industry-wide, so that's tons and tons of industries.
Yeah,
that's luxury to discount brands, the whole thing. So we are this conversation. We're going to be talking about averages across the whole thing.
There's some really interesting numbers on there. So average e-commerce conversion rates are around 2.5 to 3%. Okay. The average conversion rate for Shopify stores is 1.4%,
which is 1.5% low, 1.1%
lower than average. And it's very funny that Shopify is publishing that statistic, because without thinking this through in any depth, it's very easy to look at that and go, does that mean Shopify doesn't work very well?
You could think that, but that's not the way it works.
Well, I mean, we can delve into that a little bit more, but at face value, that's how it seems.
Value.
On Shopify, conversion rates are lower. You have it straight from Shopify.
Yes. Yes.
What I think that speaks to is the kind of stores that are on Shopify. a lot of the biggest e-commerce stores that are driving the most revenue and being the most successful are probably on bespoke systems.
Yep.
Like, I don't know if there's no way Amazon is included in these average metrics, because that would like skew it way further. Because every time you log into Amazon, you buy something. The conversion rate
so that
would be
might include big
astronomically
commerce cloud.
Yeah, but for small businesses, if you're the type of business where Shopify would be an appropriate platform to sell your products, more than likely your competitors aren't in that 2.5 to 3% range. More than likely they're also selling in that lower 1.4% range. And one of the reasons I wanted to discuss this topic in this stream is that we spend a lot of time talking to the businesses we work with about improving conversion rate. And it's not uncommon for a conversation to start where the client will say something along the lines of, I want these buttons to be gray. And we respond with, okay, ultimately you're in control and we can make the buttons gray if you want. But what you should understand is that low contrast midtone is going to decrease the conversion rate for your website. So if you make the buttons gray, you won't sell as much online. And
Fact.
Right.
Fact.
That's basic of how conversion rate optimization works. The links need to be high contrast, highly visible. They need to stand out on the page. If they don't stand out, you won't sell as much. And a small business owner often doesn't grasp the importance of those kind of small changes, and it can be very difficult to show as a web developer and an e-commerce specialist, because when we talk about increasing conversion rates, we're not talking about doubling your online sales. We're not talking about suddenly going from not converting any of your visitors to converting all of your visitors. It doesn't work that way. When you look at these averages, we're playing in the range of 0.5% to 3% on the absolute high end. Right from Shopify. If you're at 3.3% conversion rate, you are in the top 20% of all Shopify stores. That means that things are flying phenomenally well.
So when those percentages are 0.5 to 3.3, really there's only a few points there, but that's 6 times.
Yeah.
That's which is huge. Which is you're converting 6 times more people are choosing to buy from you, which is, all things considered, 6 times the revenue.
Right. And this is all very subtle. It's delicate. Again, we're not trying to make massive swings here. We're trying to make subtle changes that are going to make your website perform a fraction of a percent better. That doesn't seem like very much when you go, oh, my revenue is $100,000 for the online store. If I get a 0.05% increase, that's not a lot of revenue, except that we're not talking about the same numbers, because that conversion rate isn't based on your revenue. That conversion rate is based on the number of visitors to your store. So if you have 1 million people visit your store and you're only converting 1% of those,
you're in trouble.
Well, I mean, that's
1%, 10,000 customers. Great, that's 1% of 1 million.
That's still, pretty good. I don't know how much you're spending to get those 1 million visitors. If we can increase that from 1% to 2%,
you've doubled.
You've doubled your sales.
You've doubled.
Yeah. And so these small percentage increases can have a massive impact on your bottom line when you consider that they're multiplied by the amount of traffic your website is getting. So my first discussion topic, now that I've rambled about why this is so important,
very important,
is what are some factors that actually impact conversion rate?
Ooh, there's tons. So I'll start very, very, very with the basics. Good photography. If you only have one terrible photo of your product that you got from your manufacturer, and you're looking at your store going, oh wow, well I've got 1,000 SKUs. How do I possibly get good photos for 1,000? Don't start with 1,000. Start with your top 40, 20. Start with your top sellers, your key products. If they don't have good photography, we're dead in the water. We can't sell what people can't see. Good copywriting, so good descriptions, the facts, good and I put those together. Good photos and good copy, which ultimately means good page. If we can make any video into that as well. Just simply having a video on the product page increases conversion rates, even if the people don't watch the video. It's just a form of social proof going, I believe this now. There's all kinds of things like having product reviews on the page, instructional content, any kind of downloadable resource to, again, boost what someone is actually thinking about. Oh, maybe I won't, maybe I will.
One of the biggest things is just getting out of your customer's way and making it easy for them to complete a purchase.
Yeah.
It's crazy how many sites we see that don't have a button visible before you scroll down the web page.
Oh yeah, above the fold content. If
right?
above
You're
the fold,
losing a massive portion of your audience if you don't give them a way to interact with your site right away.
Yeah. One of the first things we do when we install analytics on our customer sites is actually we track how much of the website actually gets scrolled.
Yeah.
And this isn't crazy software. This is done through Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager, and we can say, oh, well, you got 10,000 visitors on this site. We're going to actually be able to see how many of them scrolled 25% down the page, 50% down the page, 75. So if I bury what I need them to see further down the page, there's just less visibility. So that 10,000 viewers is not really 10,000 viewers. It's a fraction of the people. So the higher we get it, the easier it is. The more eyeballs. There's other things too. So there's a whole bunch of email marketing that can go into this, and these are more advanced things.
Now that's not really a conversion rate optimization thing, right? That's part of the larger marketing strategy.
The larger marketing. How do I target
so like
things?
How do you see conversion rate optimization fitting into a larger marketing strategy?
Well, one is determining if you've got a traffic problem or a conversion rate problem to start with, because if you don't have any traffic. And if you have 100 visitors to your website a month, and you're trying to say, well, my conversion, it's like, no, we have to solve the traffic thing first, because again, we're trying to multiply decimals. So if we have really low on either end, it's not good. So traffic first. If you have any usable data, like starting with we want to use the things that we know work in the industry, but we also need to figure out what your audience is looking at, what your competitors are, if there's any kind of information missing. So understanding the landscape a little bit, common design practices, listen to your designer. Like Aron said, like you are the business owner. If you've got a great grasp if you have a great grasp on CRO, conversion rate optimization, and it's not working, then you don't have a good grasp on conversion rate optimization. So if it is poor, you need to listen.
There's a lot of factors that can impact this too that aren't obvious as well. So what you were driving at with the email marketing side of things, you might have an offer with a slower conversion cycle. Like
very true.
If you're selling a really high-end, complicated product, you might actually need to focus on conversions that direct people into your mailing list rather than that initial purchase, because it's just too big an ask the first time they land on your website. Yeah. Overall, there's a lot of ways you can tweak your marketing strategy to make conversion rate optimization work for you. It's a complicated process and something you should probably be working with a professional on, but it's absolutely crucial to improving your online sales. Yeah. There's lots of ways you can improve the performance of your Shopify sites. Shopify is always rolling out new tools to help make this better. I'd love to launch into our last article for the day, which is discussing Shopify's AI Sidekick. Do you want to walk us through this next one?
Yeah. Shopify's AI Sidekick chatbot for merchants is now in early access. So very cool. Shopify's new AI, we're calling it Sidekick chatbot, is officially launching in early access. The company said as part of its summer 2024 edition. Updates announced on Monday. Sidekick, which the company first revealed last year, functions as a support chatbot for merchants, helping them do things like make discount codes, generate reports about your store, or suggest blog post ideas. Sure, it sounds like a pretty typical AI chatbot stuff, but it seems like it could be a useful way to get help or assistance, especially if Shopify continues to tailor the chatbot to fit merchants' needs. Sidekick is live across thousands of Shopify stores, but it's currently limited to merchants who have English stores in North America. Shopify is making a handful of other AI-focused announcements too. One AI-powered product categorization seems like it could actually save merchants a lot of time. As you're building a product listing, Shopify Tech can automatically suggest the taxonomy about a product. Taxonomy that's used to make listings more accessible and easily discoverable. That might fit that product so that if you don't have that type in it yourself, it'll essentially create it. If Shopify suggestions aren't right, you can manually change it. Another AI tool will offer suggested replies for customer chats that will come through Shopify Inbox. That's Shopify's email marketing tool. Right now, these replies are just suggestions, meaning merchants will have to be the ones to finalize and actually send a response. Shopify is also bringing its AI-powered image generator, which launched in January, to its iOS and Android apps and letting merchants use it in more places in their Shopify admin. The company says Shopify merchants have saved more than 1 million AI-generated images in 6 months, and that's from The Verge. I've got a whole bunch I want to talk about that because some things are
Kick us
great
off.
and some things are great, not good. There's some technical bits in there, so if you don't know what taxonomy is, that's okay. It's great. We've got some AI tools that are going to essentially help you save time. The first one, how does AI fit into the moves that we've seen Shopify making over the past few years? Well, one, I think a lot of companies are jumping on the AI bandwagon. There's like a ton of them. I can't think of like too many tech companies that don't have like an AI product now, and some of these things are like real AI and some of these things are just machine learning and other things. Great. Like, who cares about the definition? The goal is to save Shopify merchants time by making things easier or better. Great. How does it fit? They're trying to appeal to... I don't think the larger businesses care too much about like AI-powered image generators or things like that, like, because they're already probably using tools. They probably already have other tools in their tech stack that are doing that thing.
To my mind, it kind of depends on the performance of the AI image generators.
There's other ones on the market already.
Well, yes, and most of them aren't useful for e-commerce.
They're not.
And we
They're
talk
really
about this
not.
all the time. There's no, like, as an e-commerce business, there's no reason why you should be generating AI images of your products, because they're not going to work. They're not going to be exactly the product you're trying to sell, and it's going to create a bizarre experience for people trying to understand what the heck you're actually selling.
That's a customer service nightmare. Just like
you should never be using images on your site that don't look like the product you're trying to sell.
Yeah, you're going to run into trouble.
Yeah.
You're going to get a call, you're going to get an email, you're going to get returns. It won't be good.
And like AI images are the worst case scenario of that. Like, I mean, it's bad enough using outdated images of your product. Like, if you're a startup and you have to use images of a prototype instead of what the customers are actually going to get, that can cause a lot of headaches.
Yeah.
If you're just creating the images out of thin air, you're amplifying the potential issues with that approach. That said, I can imagine a useful implementation for AI image generation. I'm going to share screen again for a moment.
I knew you were going here. Yep.
In the article, the image from Shopify that they use shows off 3 of the same chair in 3 different colors. Now, I have no idea what the background is on this image, but if you were able to start from a photograph of the product and use AI to generate recolored versions of that photograph, I could see that being a killer tool for a ton of e-commerce stores.
If the color is accurate to your actual colors.
Sure, yeah.
Yep, like again, it's a time-saving tool. If it can generate the right yellow like you had, or the pink or the green, and that is an accurate reflection of your product, go for it. There's no reason that you need to go through a rendering process, but it's got to be good.
That's the thing, though, is we see a lot of companies that are huge players that are using custom renders to represent all of their products rather than getting photography of everything. I can imagine a world where AI is used to bridge the gap for businesses that are too small to have the rendering capabilities, and also too small to pay for individual professional photography of every single color variant of every single product.
Yep.
It would have to be pretty good for it to be useful, but I can conceive of that being useful, whereas just like generating the image in the first place is probably not going to create a ton of value.
So there's some stuff there. I know that Aron and I have a little bit of experience with like AI chatbots and the functionality that comes out of having a working tool on your site to actually interact with customers in real time. Those work really well. Like the text-based things where you're just trying
to some extent. The ones where you pre-populate the answers and they just get fed out are better than the ones where an AI is coming up. Yeah, because you don't want to invent things.
Have you seen that one where the guy talks the chatbot into selling him a truck for $1?
No, that's terrible.
Yeah. So like there's still work to be done. That was my point. There's still work to be done in this space. So is it perfect? No.
Well, so what's interesting in this case, though, is that the chatbot that's being highlighted in this article isn't consumer facing.
It's for the back end.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if that was trained on all the data from the Shopify guides that are on their website, I could see it potentially being really useful. If you're trying to figure out, like, how the heck do I add a discount code? I haven't done this in ages. I'm not a web developer. What do I do? If there's a chatbot that can just walk you through that process.
Huge value. That's great value.
At the same time, though, and I will call Shopify out a little bit on this, because we've had a long history working with Shopify, and we've helped them do a lot of education.
A lot.
Shopify used to have excellent support for merchants. Used to have a phenomenal program for educating their merchants and phenomenal support staff for when merchants run into problems. And the same went for when partners run into problems. And over the last few years, as we've continued to work with Shopify and they've continued to grow, the platform has only gotten better. We love the platform, excellent tools. They've clearly put a lot of love and a lot of work into it. But the customer support from the tech support people that are now being hired out to seemingly some third party, it's not what it used to be.
Not what it used to be at all.
It's very difficult to get actual customer support from a real human being. And I see this new AI system as kind of an attempt to replace what was originally a really excellent service provided by actual human beings.
Yeah, it was called Shopify Local way back. We were part of that from day one. But again, from the education standpoint, we've done, I don't know how many workshops. We've done live AMAs on their forums. We've done so much to help that community grow, and that's part of the reason why we like why we joined as a partner 2000, a long time ago. And the goal was, this is going to be a great tech tool because of the support. When we've talked about this on stream before, part of the validation process of us looking at new tools is support. When we have a problem with something, what happens next?
Yeah.
And this could be either really good, and I might be able to ask it something and it gives me the exact answer I'm looking for, that'd be sweet. Or it could be supplementing like a human resource, and it's not so good. And I'm hoping that's good.
I suspect that this will do a great job answering simple questions.
Yeah,
simple questions. We're never reaching out to support asking how to set up a discount code.
No.
Right? I don't think it'll be able to answer the complex questions that we're usually reaching out to support for.
Yeah, why does this? Yeah.
I hope that at some point Shopify focuses on improving the support ecosystem for merchants that are working on those more complex things. If this can solve a lot of the simpler problems and make it so that there is less demand on the support staff that are able to answer the more technical questions, I would hope that they keep those support staff around or bring on more of those support staff and just upgrade the overall experience rather than using this as an excuse to just cut without adding more value somewhere else to make up for it.
I will say, we're not the type of people that we don't, like for our clients, we don't want to be picking up the phone and trying to help someone create a discount code either.
Yeah,
like that's like we'll teach you that, we're gonna do all that, but like we want to tackle the higher level problems.
Yep.
So like those things, they're not taking work away from us. We don't want that work in the first place.
And we'll do it on a subscription basis. We'll do it. Like if we're maintaining the Shopify site for you, you don't need to know how to make a discount code, because when the time for the discount, we'll just set it up.
It's done. But typically when merchants are looking to hire an agency or looking to hire a development partner, they're looking to offshore those things. They're looking to outsource those things to say, just figure it out. They're not looking for like, how do I create the 15 buy one get one?
I think the taxonomy is really interesting.
That one.
And the reason I think this is interesting is because I have a theory that Shopify is trying to compete with Amazon.
Okay, let's hear it.
I predicted this when the Shop app was first announced, right?
Yes.
Because the Shop app conglomerates a lot of your data from purchases on different Shopify stores into one marketplace, and can even pull in products from different Shopify stores into one marketplace. So to my mind, Shop is kind of set up as Shopify's Amazon killer. And the challenge, though, is that so much of the data is entered by small business owners who have their own systems for doing things. Well, if Shopify has an AI system that helps you do all of the tagging and describe your products in the way they want you to describe their products, well, that's going to make it a lot easier for them to organize product within Shop and make that a more useful marketplace platform compared to just relying on like all this random data that they're getting from untrained business owners. So very cool feature for merchants, but I think if you read between the lines a little bit there, I think it's ultimately a very cool feature for Shopify as well to help them make their own apps more useful. And compete with Amazon in that marketplace ecosystem.
That taxonomy will probably help small business owners with a little bit of SEO as well.
Yep.
The right categorization of things. It's never a bad thing. So
No, I don't think it's a bad thing.
Never a bad thing.
I just think that there's some hidden value that Shopify is getting out of it that is also really cool and worth noting. Do you have any final thoughts on this topic before we wrap up the stream?
I do like, I mean, the summer 2024 edition, I've read it. If you're looking for more, like the Shopify puts out a ton of news. If you want more there, definitely sign up to that email list. It's well worth your while. They put out good stuff. So they put out a lot. There's a lot. It's a big company, a lot of moving parts. It's good. I do like them making investments into making the merchant size better, but no, this was good. This was good. If you have any questions, or if something on the stream was really, tickles your fancy, we'd be happy to chat about it. We'll throw some links at the end of this. You can book a strategy session if you're...
Yeah. If anything we said today resonates with you, I strongly encourage you to book a strategy session with one of our experts. We'll take the time to get to know your business, develop a plan that makes sense for you, and answer your burning questions so that you can move forward with confidence and clarity. Yeah. If that sounds impactful, book a free strategy session. And in the meantime, thanks for watching.
We'll see you soon.